So I may or may not post this video only because I wasn't planning on making one this week. I was just going to take the week off and do nothing. And then I thought you know what, take the moment to experiment when I have just a brief moment of energy now to try doing just a knit and chat podcast format, almost no editing, because not very many people are going to like this, but there are a couple people that might just need something on in the background while they're working on a project. So for those of you who are here, welcome. I'm just going to talk and try not to edit myself too much so that it's just not a ton of work to put this video out. And worst case scenario, everyone hates it and I take it down because I just can't deal with the conflict. That was a joke, just for reference. All right, you sit down, baby girl. Woo. Way to sit on the yarn. She's functioning kind of like a yarn bowl. That's fine. She's also not sitting. Her butt is shoved up into my stomach because that's a thing. It just can't be comfortable, I imagine. I am working on another sibling sweater because my last attempt at doing a sibling sweater did not work out, and I will not give up. I will have my second sibling sweater. Done by the wonderful, lovely designer Laura Penrose, advocate for mental health and super cozy YouTuber. Although I do think the word cozy is maybe overused right now. I think people are kind of getting sick of it because everything is being described as cozy. I would just say, as far as crafting people goes, and people on the internet, her channel just feels like a safe space, which I appreciate. And she's making it so difficult to get to my yarn. I have another video that I'm working on that I may or may not release, which I'm saying about literally every single video, including this one. But just look at the yarn. This is a sweater that I have unraveled, and oh boy, some people are gonna not be happy about that because I have gotten a lot of compliments on this sweater, but it just didn't work for me, and I have a whole video talking about it. But anyways, that is what I'm working on today, and it's so fun to just like not overthink striping and have like a pre-made self-striping yarn that I made, so it feels way more personal. It's just fun, and it's made from scrap yarn. Scrap yarn projects are fun because to me, it's not only a way to use up yarn from previous projects and like yarn in your stash, but I feel like what's underrated is the sentimental aspect of it. So to me, the previous sweater that I had been working on or finished and had been wearing, and what has become new yarn and will become a new sweater, what I love about this is that it's yarn that I've used in previous projects, and so there's like memories tied to each color, and a lot of these were used to make gift knits for family and friends because I just went on a huge knitting mitten montage where I made some honestly subpar mittens. Like if I tried to make mittens again, they would be better. I can do better, people, and I will try slowly but surely. Yeah. Also right now I am wearing a sibling sweater, which I have been bragging about, and I'm also wearing sweatpants that I sewed, which is fun, and my cat's blocking it and I'm sitting down so you can't really see them that well, but they are pretty cute. However, I've had them for about a year now. No, scratch that. I've had them for almost 2 years, and they're starting to kind of fall apart. I went through this huge sewing phase because I learned how to sew when I was in school. I've known how to work a sewing machine for most of my life, and I can do very basic sewing projects. However, I do not like the process of sewing. It is not fun to me. Also, my dishwasher is running right now, and so it sounds super loud to me. And the sink, it makes this like gurgling sound when the dishwasher's running. It's just such a funny sound. I'm not bothered by the fact that you can hear it because, you know, most of us have dishwashers, and if you don't, that's fun. What was I saying? I was talking about sewing. Yes, so I don't like the process of it. I get very frustrated and very angry with myself, and when the machine stops working every foot and you have to figure out what's going wrong and restring it a million times, it's not my hobby. I tried so hard. I forced myself into it. And it's difficult because I'm capable of sewing, but because I dislike it so much, I always cut corners and I always try to do things to get the project done faster because I don't want to be working on it. I also don't want to cut your toe off with yarn. And so I just end up not making stuff that's as quality, not because I lack the ability to, but because I just lack the patience to, which I think can be said for a lot of things and a lot of people. I think a lot of us can relate to that. So number one, I might try getting back into sewing, but from a more gentle and loving perspective. And I have decided to fully give myself permission to not sew things, which is something I personally have struggled with. If I have the ability to make something, I feel so bad and so guilty about buying it. Oh my gosh, the hemming and hawing about buying these pillows when I have the capability of sewing pillows very easily. But I had so many emotions around that, and I hate doing zippers as well. And so if I sewed one, I wouldn't want to do zippers. It wouldn't be as good because of my laziness. So I'm going to give myself permission to not sew anything. One thing that does make me sad that I need advice on is swimsuits. So I've been sewing my own swimsuits for about 2 years now, and I love it. I don't like making them, and we'll see. I do have fabric left over to make some more, so if I feel like I can approach it from a better perspective or like be gentle with myself about it, I might attempt making a swimsuit again. We shall see. But I don't know what to do now that I'm like letting myself not make my own swimsuits, because every swimsuit in the store that is listed as being high-waisted is not high-waisted enough for me. I need it to basically be a one-piece with how high that waist goes. It needs to go like 4 inches over my belly button. And I just cannot find a high-quality swimsuit, or at all, a swimsuit at all, that is high-waisted enough. So if anybody out there knows of brands or any sort of recommendations for swimsuits that are high-waisted, please let me know. And I do need it to be, it makes it a little more harder. I do have some requirements that make it a little more difficult. One, it does need to be a 2-piece. It can't be a 1-piece, only because I am very different sizes, my top and bottom, because of my stomach and big hips. My bottoms are usually like between a large and an extra large, and then my tops are a medium. So a 1-piece just doesn't work, and I have a very short torso, so they almost never fit the way I want them to. And 2, it has to be something where I can get a matching top. Like, I like the top and bottom to match and be the same color. It's just more my style. So if anybody can list those, if it appears to be quality and something that would last several years, I'd be willing to spend up to like $150 to $200, if I'm being honest. Only because I go to the pool every day in the summer, and so I get a lot of use out of my swimsuits, and it's important to me to have ones that I am comfortable in. Otherwise, I have a very difficult time going to the pool. But my favorite thing about going to the pool in the summer is just getting to sit down, put on some music. There's no Wi-Fi there. It's such a dead zone, and my phone hardly works. So it's completely like unplugged except for me listening to music. And I usually just sit on a chair and knit while basking in the sun for like 2 hours with a bucket of sunscreen on me. Because I'm a fair-skinned girl. So yeah, that's my thing about sewing. That whole spiel, like everything, I say spiel a little too much. Not that I think it's annoying for you, but it's annoying to me. I don't want to be saying it as much. Oh my gosh, can you tell how my brain works from this conversation? I'm just bouncing all over the place. I released a video, my last video was remaking the big blanket that's in my bedroom. And I ended up talking so much in that video, just on and on for 3 hours. And I cut down clips that were just out of nowhere, random clips. And I did get several comments of people being like, oh my gosh, please release the rest of that. Like, I would totally watch it. So this is that version. This is about the same level of conversational quality. Also, someone did mention, I think actually multiple people mentioned that they'd be interested in hearing more about what I had to say on the chemistry of polymers, because I took classes in material science and I took classes focusing on the chemistry of polymers. So I do, not to brag, know a bit about plastic from a chemical standpoint and an environmental standpoint, and how it's manufactured. So that is something that I just like talking about. So that's probably going to come up a couple times over the course of my YouTube career, which is the wrong word. It's not a career. This is not going to be my main source of income ever. That's not a thing. I have not yet agreed to any sponsorships. I've had several brands reach out, but I just haven't felt really comfortable with any of them. And it hasn't felt like, yes, this is the right thing for me to do. So, I've just been turning those down, which is like really hard for me and my social anxiety. But that's where we're at. I was talking about something and I completely forgot what I was talking about, so that's fun. I've been on this same pink stripe the whole time we've been talking, which is only like 5 minutes, but still. What am I doing? Okay, also, I have taken one video down off of my YouTube channel since I started, just one. And it was one where I did a living room tour because, one, I felt very awkward about it. Like, it wasn't my best. I just felt awkward that day, and I could do better. I know I could do better, but in it, the whole point was me being like, yeah, I'm going to make all these changes to my living room, and I'll give an update soon when I've, like, purchased all these things or made all these things and implemented them. And I have been getting so stressed and anxious about interior design lately, which is such a dumb thing for me to get stressed and anxious about. Like, I just feel like nothing's ever finished. And you might notice my background's a little different, and that's because I wanted to start going about my interior design a little bit differently. So I'm slowing way down. I have made an agreement with myself only because I personally value being financially minimalistic. I love watching people who are doing low buy challenges or no buy challenges, which is where you don't buy any non-essentials for like however long you want to do it. But the channels I watch, they're usually doing it for a year or long term. So I've been slowly implementing that over the past several years and just whittling down my spending habits. So I don't love the idea of overconsumption, and I feel like I'm jumping into buying pieces that I don't love only to get sick of them like immediately after buying them. So I just want to be more thoughtful about how I go about designing my space, because it is very important to me how my space looks. As someone that works from home and is a total homebody and just has a general interest in interior design, it matters to me. So I'm way slowing down on what I'm buying, and that's forcing me to again get a little creative with my interior designing habits and think about things in just a different way, work with what I already have, trying to do things for free or for very small amounts of money, or really investing and saving for pieces that I'm absolutely gonna love. So on this wall behind me, it used to just be, it's actually been a couple things since I've moved into this apartment. I've mixed it up a little bit, but for the longest time, it's just been the 3 big frames next to each other, and it didn't make sense for the scale of the wall. It was too small of a combination of stuff, and it was too boring in combination with this couch. It looked a little too corporate housing to me. Like generic Airbnb was the vibe I was getting, and that's not my vibe. And then I overcorrected and put in way too much color. And now I have to live with those choices for a while. So I just think I've found my sweet spot. I was getting very overwhelmed trying to think of color combinations to do. I was like, I just want to do shades of brown and beiges and neutrals, but am I just doing that because it's trendy, or it's not even trendy anymore? People hate it, the like sad beige rooms. But I like beige and brown and off-whites, and just like throwing in a couple other colors here and there. So what I did on this back wall was I grabbed these 2 quilted pieces that I did not make. I bought them on Facebook Marketplace originally to cut them up and make them into something else. And then I saw this one, in person, this one. And I was like, I can't cut this. This needs to be displayed. This piece deserves my respect. And I had nowhere to display it really. So it's been unlovingly tossed into my bedroom for a while. And I've pinned them to the wall with like little sewing pins, the ones that you use to like hold the fabric together. There's a name for these pins and I cannot remember what they're called. So yeah, I just used those and pinned them to the wall. And then I had these garlands, these stupid garlands I got at the grocery store for I think like $15. They were on sale after Christmas, I think. Maybe it was New Year's. And it was those felt ball garlands that just looked a little lazy and boring when thrown up on my wall. I don't know why I bought it, let alone 2 of them. Probably because it was on sale, and felt balls are like kind of expensive. So I was like, at worst, I can turn them into something else. So that's what I did. I was gonna go over to a friend's house, and then my husband was getting ready, and he takes a long time to get ready. We're talking like an hour and a half. So I decided to, in that time, I made this wall happen, minus a couple steps. So not really. Just gonna make a bold declaration and then immediately rescind that. But basically, I took down all the paintings. I just had this like rush of motivation to finally like do something about this wall after it bothering me for so long. So yeah, I ripped open the garlands and took off all the felt balls, and then just started messing around and making different shapes and playing around with it, and then decided, hey, they look kind of cute as flowers. So then I hot glued them to some felt backing that I already owned. I had this felt fabric, which just worked out to use up more of my crafting supplies. Yes! I have so much crafting supplies I've been hoarding that I've been slowly trying to use up so that I don't have to keep storing it anymore. So I was glad to use that up, and then I used the pins and pinned them to the wall. So yeah, that is the story of my interior decorating direction in life. I just don't want to be one of those people that finishes a room after spending so much time, money, and energy working on it and designing it and building it to be perfect, only to be like, great, I hate it. I want to be satisfied. I want to understand the concept of enough. I feel like that's something that a lot of people really struggle with, myself included, big time. I don't want to be dissatisfied in life. I want to be grateful and be more verbal about my gratitude. I just want to know that sometimes enough is enough. I don't always need to be seeking out more money. I don't always need to be more productive. I don't need to have a perfectly manicured styled home, because it's never going to look like the homes on Instagram, because those images aren't real. They're hiding their cords, taking away items that make it look like it's really lived in, or they have a ton of money to throw at it. And I don't want to keep changing up my space. I really don't. I like the idea of freshening things up just to have it be fun again. But I want to do that in small ways, with throw pillows and throw blankets, or like crocheting. I really want to crochet a granny square blanket. I will do it. I'm going to cast that on this year, 2024. You heard it here first, folks. It's happening. Granny square blanket. I can do it. I can crochet a blanket. I'm just going to start saying that until I believe it. And I'm getting on another tangent here. The point I'm trying to make is I want to feel like enough is enough. I want to feel okay with where I'm at in life, and I don't want to have to feel like I'm always chasing something else. I don't want to be dissatisfied with my own life, because I have an amazing life. I have a fantastic life. I moved 2,000 miles away from where I grew up, which is wild and amazing, and I love it, and I love where I live. I like my job. I'm thankful. I'm so thankful. I'm really thankful for my husband and my cats. I need to be more vocal about the things I love and the things I enjoy in my life, because I've been getting a little too grumpy and it's starting to annoy me. I just remember 2021 being such a great year, and then 2022 even better. It was fantastic. And then 2023, for some reason, my mental health was like, hey, you know how you've been doing real good these past 2 years, like better than any point in your life ever? Yeah, that's got to stop. We got to do something about that. So that's where we're at now. And I just want to get back to that. I just became really ungrateful with where I was and frustrated that I wasn't where I wanted to be or where I thought I deserved to be. And understanding that financial position has very little to do with how hard you work. It has very little to do with how much you deserve it, how much you want it, how much you've earned it. I'm already working as hard as I can work. I'm already doing all the things that I can do. And it's to the point where it's too much. Like, I'm working too much. I'm putting too much effort in. And it's detracting from me enjoying my life the way I want it to. And I don't just mean at my job. I was working too much at my hobbies. I turned them into effort by setting the standard that I have to make everything that I own. Why? Why do cats forget that they have claws frequently? Because she just heard a noise and then she like clawed into my leg just now. And she climbs up my body like a monkey on a tree to try to get some cuddles when I am working on my work, sitting at my desk chair. And she just forgets that, hey, I'm not a scratching post that you can just climb up. I was trying to think of a fancier word than climb, but whatever. My vocabulary is very average, and that's okay. And she just claws at me and forgets that, like, hey, that hurts. But I feel like she knows that it would hurt. She has to know on some level, because she doesn't claw Mary, who you probably can't see right now, who's sleeping in the bowl. My foot is falling asleep. That's great. That's all right. I didn't need to have sensation in my foot anyways. Okay, I'm also at a weird point in my life right now with my relationship to yarn, which sounds so dramatic, and I'm being dramatic. But here's the deal, and I'm sure a lot of other people can also relate, and there's going to be some comments about this, I know. But I am at a point where I understand yarn now. When I started knitting, because I've been knitting since I was, let's just do a little history lesson and totally go off point before I even... We're going to meander for a second, but I'm going to make it back to the point I make. I'll try to promise. I don't know if I can actually promise. I'll try. Where was I even meandering to? My relationship with yarn. Yeah, so I first started knitting when I was in 5th grade. There was an after-school class at my school that you could sign up for and pay through the community. And my parents signed me up, and I'm very thankful for that. And I learned how to knit. And then I consistently knit like maybe 1 or 2 things a year. It was always rectangles. I could knit and purl, and that's all I did for, I don't know, 12 years maybe. I don't know how to count right now, but basically for all of middle school and high school and college. I never improved at my knitting beyond just getting really good at having consistent knit and purl stitches, which I think is one of the hardest things to overcome when you're first learning how to knit. And at that point, I didn't know anything about the knitting community. I didn't know there even was one. I was not active on knitting YouTube or knitting Instagram. So I had started following in 2020 the YouTube creator Kudavakika, and she had a photography channel. And I was following her because I was getting really into photography, and I learned a lot, and she had great photography content. But then one day, she decided to pivot her channel. channel. She decided to pivot, and she decided that she wanted her channel to focus on knitting instead. And she did that slowly. There was a transition, and she would mix it up and have different videos. And I was still loving her channel. And the first video that she released that I saw was her talking about all the knits that she had previously done and reviewing them. And I was blown away. I watched that video about 4 times over because I totally rewatched knitting videos, or videos in general on YouTube. I had never seen somebody that made their own sweaters. And if I did, they were very matronly or not my style. And it was like the 90s patterns that they would have on display at like a Michael's craft store. I didn't know that there were yarn stores even. And so that video just changed it all for me. Because I saw someone making sweaters that I would want to make. And I decided that I was going to try doing that. It wasn't until 2021, so it took me about a year and a half, because it was the end of 2021, November, when I finally decided to make my first sweater. I was too intimidated to follow a pattern. I had no idea how to read a knitting pattern, and I didn't want to bother with that, but I knew how to do, at this point, knitting, knit stitches, purl stitches. For some reason, I had learned twisted rib at that point. It must have been from Kuda Kika's channel, because otherwise I would not have known how to do that. And then, yeah, increases and decreases. So that was all I knew how to do. So I made a paneled sweater out of drops alpaca, because that was something that Veronica Lindbergh, that's her name, had mentioned on her channel that she liked. And so I just bought some of that yarn, because that's the fanciest yarn I had ever heard of, and I'd always wanted an alpaca something. So I self-drafted a paneled sweater with balloon sleeves and a twisted rib-necked folded over collar. And it turned out amazing. Like, actually amazing. I even wore it to my wedding reception. So it was beginner's luck for sure, because I have made several sweaters since that have not turned out that good. So that was beginner's luck, but it's good that I had that beginner's luck, and the first one turned out so good and so my style, and I loved it in every single way. I just had this amazing spark and passion to like just keep going, because knitting was always one of those hobbies that I would set down, pick back up. I wouldn't stick with it. I wasn't consistently knitting. It was just a hobby like all my other hobbies, but I had a million of them. And this is when it turned into being my primary hobby, and the first hobby that I wanted to actually do right and learn and improve. Like, I like to paint, and I have a lot of paintings in my apartment that I've done, but I don't know how to do it the correct way, and I have not improved my painting skills at all. Like, I haven't even tried. And that's how I approached every single hobby, was I'm just doing this to have fun. But then, yeah, knitting, it was just, it was different. It hit so different. And so I just kept knitting, and I didn't know much. I started slowly learning, like, hey, if Kuda Kika has a YouTube channel about knitting, there's got to be other ones out there too, right? So then I found Well Loved Knits and Wool Needles Hands, and between those 3 people, I learned so much. Wool Needles Hands had amazing information about yarn and fiber, and she got very technical and talked about tools in a really interesting way. And then Well Loved Knits, she had tutorials and inspiration and patterns and designers that I'd never heard of. I didn't know what a petite knit was, which is wild that 2 years ago I didn't know who petite knit was, or like what that was about. How the times have changed, and she inspired me to like try new things and try new projects, and she gave me the tools to understand how to do that and where to begin. And then with Wool Needles Hands, she gave me the knowledge to like know, I don't know where I'm going with that. And then Kuda Kika was my spark. She kept being the spark channel, the inspiration channel. And that just drove my absolute love of knitting insane in the best way. So I love it. I am loving the knitting community and crochet community because I learned how to crochet when I was in high school, and I've been crocheting on and off for several years. And I didn't have the same spark with it, or I hadn't had that moment with crochet until more recently. And it was through the book Crochet Crush by, I think it's pronounced Mola Mills, but I don't know for sure. It might be Moya Mills. Anyways, I don't know. And that was the first time that I saw crochet patterns that I was absolutely in love with, because again, so many just weren't my style. I was seeing so much that I didn't want to make, that I didn't consider that there was stuff out there that I would want to make. And it's really hard to find. It's hard to find the stuff that gets me excited about crochet, but I'm so glad that I'm starting to find it. So I am starting to have that spark of it with crochet, and I'm very excited about moving into it. Let me know in the comments your knitting or crochet origin story. So how you learned. I know everyone has such a wildly different story, which amazes me. For my international viewers, which is actually most of my subscribers based on the analytics that I get, in the United States, knitting is not a very common hobby. A lot of people do it, yes, but I don't personally have anybody in my life that knits. I don't. I'm not close with anybody that knits. My only friend that has a fiber arts related hobby is one of my friends who crochets, and we live very far apart from one another, so we just have Skype dates. We're amazing, and she's the best, and she's a very good crochet artist. Because it is art. Crochet is art, and so is knitting. It's an art form, people. So yeah, it's just not very common. And then to buy supplies, you have to either get them online or go to a big box craft store, which would be like Michael's or Joann's. Or you can go to specialty yarn stores, and they just have the really expensive stuff. So you basically, in my, what I have access to where I live, in person, if I want to buy stuff in person, it's either really, really cheap stuff that I don't want to work with, or really, really expensive stuff that I can't afford to work with. Or I can shop online for the mid-tier stuff. And I just wish that there was more mid-tier stuff available. So I would love to visit Scandinavia and see what the knitting culture is like over there. I also am ready. I've been living where I've been living long enough. I've been living here on and off since 2019, but permanently since 2021. And I'm ready to start being more involved in my community. So I want to start finding knitting and crochet groups, and trying to figure out how I can use my knitting and crochet to volunteer, and what ways I can use this hobby to be more involved in my community, and other ways outside of, knitting and crochet, I can be involved in my community. So I'm ready to do that, which is fun. Back to my original point that I promised you earlier I was going to get back to, and here I am living up to the promise. I'm at a point where I now know enough about knitting and fiber arts and yarn, really. I've learned enough, and I know enough about material science just from college that I know what kind of yarn aligns with my values. Unfortunately, I cannot really afford to always be buying yarn that aligns with my values. And the more complicated thing, because that excuse is only so valid, there are so many options for buying yarn or acquiring yarn that fits my values. But the other thing is I'm at a crossroads, because I should define my values being, I like to prioritize natural fibers. I'm going to make an entire video about this. I am not a synthetic yarn hater, and I will spell out in that whole video why that is. But these are just my preferences. I have sensory issues, and so I need something that's not going to be itchy. I'm okay with hand washing stuff, and I love to support small businesses and local farms and working with fibers that are made ethically, especially if they're sourced from animals, and then ethical human rights labor as well, ethical treatment of workers. But I can't buy or afford to buy local. You know what? No, I'm not even going to go down that road right now. The point I should be making, and the thing I'm struggling with the most, is sometimes I do want to use yarn that doesn't entirely align with my values, and I have such an internal conflict about it. And there's one yarn in particular that I've been thinking about, and that would be a superwash merino wool blend that I saw at Michael's the other day, because I only go to Michael's or Joann's once every like 3 or 4 months. I'm not a shopper. I don't like shopping anymore. That's not a thing that I really enjoy doing. Excluding a couple selective safe space shops that I go to from time to time. Anyways, last time I was there, I saw a lot of very interesting yarn, and there was one by Loops and Threads that I found extremely intriguing, merino wool and synthetic blend, which doesn't align with my desire to be sustainable and supporting small local brands and small local businesses. But I still really want to try that yarn, and I just really want to try it. I want to work with it. It was so soft, and I have such a hard time finding non-itchy yarns. So I don't know. I'm kind of at a crossroads with this of, should I just let myself try it or not? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. And there probably isn't a right answer, because there are so many arguments for like, well, you're overthinking it, and buy what you love. You're not doing it all the time, so it's totally okay. Like, I can absolutely justify this. And then there's the other argument of like, no, you should always stick with your values. That should be the guiding force in every decision that is made. So yeah, I can see both sides. That's the thing. That leads to classic overthinking. I'm on a new stripe color right now, though. I am on purple. But it's all right. I'm at max capacity with my stash right now, so I'm not buying anymore. I like for all the yarn I own to be able to fit into one. If you know the big tote storage boxes, all my yarn needs to fit in one of those. I'm not expanding beyond that. It stresses me out. I can't. If I can't use it within a year, like if I can't use all the yarn I own, or possibly knit or crochet fast enough to use all the yarn in a year, it's too much yarn in my stash. So that's where we're at. But like, thinking about that yarn, I'm gonna start this sentence over 18 million times. I want to make a crochet blanket. What's it called? Granny square blanket. That's the word. I want to make a crochet granny square blanket, and I want to make it for this couch in this living room, and I want to incorporate, my girl, I can't feel my foot. I'm going to have to move you. She's such a whiner. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Let's just get some blood back in my leg here. But I want to make a crochet granny square blanket because I want to. And I can't afford to make that. Like, I can't afford to make it out of locally sourced, whatever, everything I just listed yarn. But I want it to all be the same type of yarn, and I want it to be consistent. I'm not going for a scrappy look for what I'm imagining in my head. And so I also would have a very difficult time thrifting like 4 different colors of yarn in a blanket quantity that's all the same weight and fiber type. So that's the instance where I'm like, you know what, maybe that's a scenario where I should be using or trying that loops and thread yarn. Because if I crochet a blanket, I'm keeping it forever. I'm not out here trying to crochet 18 million blankets in my lifetime. I'm probably just going to make like a maximum of 10 blankets over the course of my entire life. So yeah, that's mentally how I kind of justify some of these things. Is it's a piece I'm planning on having forever, and I'm gonna use it, and I'm gonna love it. Oh, my foot is tingling. Oh my gosh. I hate this so much. You know when your foot falls asleep? Pippin, do not touch my foot, please. But you stand up, or like it tingles when your like foot is waking back up again. It's my entire leg, not just my foot. It tingles so much, and if someone just comes by and like hits your foot, that's just the most physical sensation. Like it tingles. It's just a wild sensation. Can others relate? Anyways, that's what I was feeling, and that's why I was telling my cat not to touch my leg. But she did good. She did good. This has been a much longer knit and chat than I expected. But yeah, you know, I was gonna say, let me know if you like this as opposed to no video. To which case that's not a sentence, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not gonna ask that because that's just fishing for people to say yes. Because if you're watching it this far, clearly you're not hating it, unless you're hate watching it, in which case, why? Like, where's the joy in your life? Go watch a Studio Ghibli movie, or Ghibli, I don't know how it's said. I also have, my husband and I have monthly budgets, which was a good piece of advice that my parents gave us, was having an allowance. So my husband and I, we each have an allowance. It's the same amount of money, and you just can't overspend. So it's really nice because I get to spend my money, and we call it our fun money. So I get to spend my fun money on whatever I want, and I don't have to feel shame about it. And when it's out at the end of the month, and I have to wait till next month. And that just helps in my relationship with my husband, where I don't have to care what he's spending his money on. We don't have to discuss our purchases, because if it's within his fun money budget, it's within his fun money budget. He can do whatever he wants. So I really love that system. It's not perfect, but it works, especially because like we're frugal people and we have a lot of student debt that needs to be paid off, and it's taking a long time. So that's a lot of sounds. We don't have the most disposable income in the world, but we do pretty well, which I am thankful for. But out of the fun money budget also comes like shampoo, or like new clothes, or if I need new socks, that all comes from that. But those purchases end up not being that big, especially because I don't really wear makeup, and when I do, it's literally only eyeliner, mascara, and an eyebrow pencil. Those are the only 3 pieces of makeup I own. I used to do a full face of makeup every single day with the primers and the potions and the lotions and the oils and the concealer, foundation, powder, everything. Makeup is so expensive, and there's so many layers, and they just keep adding new layers every year. So in 2018, this is a new topic, by the way. We're just flowing into a new one. In 2018, I completely shaved my head bald. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I threw away all of my makeup, with the exception of eyeliner. No, sorry, with the exception of mascara. That was the only one that I kept because I have blonde eyelashes and I have blonde eyebrows. I'm also not wearing any makeup today. And it's interesting how much like shaving off all of your hair and not having any makeup, there's nothing to hide behind anymore. It's just your face is being shown out to the world. I did not realize how much I use hair, or at the time I used my hair to like hide my face. especially having like a large part where it would just be like, okay, we're just gonna cover up as much of my face as possible. So that was a wild time. I don't know if everyone could really, I don't know if I'd recommend it necessarily, but that was just about the best thing I could do to confront my appearance. And I still have a lot of body image issues, but I no longer have issues with my face anymore. I'm not self-conscious about my face, and I attribute it to that time. And then a couple years later, I decided I was ready to slowly start integrating some makeup and just realized that I don't like the way that makeup feels on my face, and I don't like the way that it sits on my face. I don't feel like it airbrushes me. I feel like I've watched all the tutorials, I've watched all the makeup gurus, and bought all the products that I was supposed to, and it still didn't do what I wanted it to do. It didn't make me feel airbrushed and polished. It just made me feel like wrinkly and sweaty. And I feel like it just highlighted imperfections, at least to me. And I also found that it wasn't good for my mental health, because when you put on makeup, for me at least, I was looking at myself very closely in the mirror, getting up close and personal to apply it. And so I was aware all the time of every single flaw on my face. And I'm really glad that I've decided that I'm just not going to be a concealer, foundation, primer kind of person anymore, which I don't recommend for everyone. Do whatever makes you feel the most confident. I feel the best about myself when I just have eyebrows drawn in a little bit, because I have blonde eyebrows and the eyebrow hair actually extends to like right here. But because of the color of my eyebrows, it just looks like they end like right here, at least to me. So I like just filling in the rest because there are hairs here. You just can't see them. And then blonde eyelashes. So I just like doing a little mascara on there. And sometimes if I'm feeling fancy, I'll do eyeliner. And I found that that works best for me. I don't feel the need to go zero makeup. I don't feel the need to have more. That's just the balance that I have found that works for me. And yeah, I'm glad about that. I'm also glad. I was worried. I honestly thought that no one would watch my YouTube videos if I didn't have a full face of makeup on every video. I was genuinely concerned that people weren't going to like it. People weren't going to care if I wasn't dressed up and looking fancy in every single video. This is not an aesthetic outfit that I have right now on, in my opinion. Like, this isn't, I wouldn't combine these two pieces of clothing. I know it's black and white and it goes with everything and sweatpants, but it's not my favorite combo. These are just literally the pajamas that I was wearing, technically. Although I love this sweater. You can never go wrong in a sweater. Can you even see my pants right now? What am I even saying? Wow, I'm still working on this purple stripe. This purple stripe be going on forever. Same with the pink one. That so far has been the two largest color stripes that I've done so far. No, I'm just being dramatic. Looking at it now, I'm just being dramatic. It's not that bad. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so the pink stripe is 10 rows, and then the purple one has been 7 rows so far. But I just like getting the stripes where it's just like 1 or 2 rows, because those are fun and they just go by fast. All right. I'm sorry. With absolutely no conversational conclusion at all, I don't even know where I left off 10 seconds ago, I am deciding to end this video. Thank you for joining me for this knit and chat, and we'll see how much I end up editing this, or if I even release it, let alone release it on time, and now I'm rambling. Bye. All right, Pippin, it is time to get up, big girl. She's like, not today. She likes being pet, and she's very, very affectionate and cuddly, but if you try to touch her belly, it doesn't matter how much she loves you, she's out.